Cleo. Thank you, Mary, for that beautiful leading us in communion, and Joe for the amazing kids talk. I wanted to just spread a little, go on a little further from where Cleo was talking last week. Cleo was encouraging us in this time of lockdown. Of course, that goes beyond lockdown, of just being able to share something of the story of Jesus with other people. She talked about the blowfish. Which is an interesting analogy that only Cleo can come up with, so bless you for that, Cleo. But for me, I always remember, certainly as a child and growing up, I always struggled with the idea of sharing Jesus with those who don't know him. Maybe it was a fear, maybe who knows where it came from. Maybe it even came from, I don't know if any of you were around in the decade of evangelism in the 90s, where there was a real spur to talk to others about Jesus, but it was always about, you must get them to pray this prayer and to believe Jesus, and it felt like there was so much pressure. And I don't carry it on in my life for quite some time, until a few years ago, just before Laura and I moved to Malawi. I heard someone say, they said this, talking to people about Jesus is not about getting them over the finishing line, but it's more about helping them on their journey to meet Jesus. So in other words, it just takes the pressure off causing that, or from you to get that person to pray that prayer, but actually just a little conversation that you have with them and talking to them about Jesus might take them from stage A to stage B on how many stages there are in their journey, and you've just had an impact in that. So I just want to take the pressure off people right there. And secondly, I think so often when people talk about Jesus and talk about what he's done for us, they talk about sin. And I think that's right to some degree. But I think sometimes, all too often, sin is seen as a dirty word. And don't get me wrong, it is a dirty word. It's ruined our souls. But I want to encourage us, actually, because I read somewhere recently and it really changed the way I saw this whole thing. I read somewhere that actually we should see sin not as a crime that needs punishment, but rather as a sickness that needs healing. I'll say that again. We should see sin not as a crime that requires punishment, but rather a sickness that needs healing. So if we begin to see sin as a sickness, we see it in a completely different light. I like to think of it as a cancer to our souls. And I'm sure if any of us had cancer, we would, or knew anybody who wanted cancer, we would want them or us to get the very best possible treatment, and obviously ultimately to be made well. Those of you around last week would have heard Cleo say that she suspected I would talk about the love of the Father. And I am going to talk about the love of the Father. It's all linked. You'll understand where I'm going. She's not wrong, but from a very different way than I have ever before. But before I do, I want to read from 1 John 3, verse 1. I've read it many times before in church. It says, "How great is the love the Father has lavished on us, that we should be called children of God." And that is what we are. How great is the love the Father has lavished on us. You see, that is not a question. It doesn't say, how great is the love of the Father? It says, it's a statement, how great the love of the Father is. It's a fact. His love is so great. His love is so large. In fact, his love will always be bigger than anything else. It trumps everything. His love trumps everything. You see, the love that he lavished on us and the love that he continues to extravagantly pour out onto us is seen in one place. Just before we came on, and during, just before, in fact, the other worship that Kath led us in, I was listening to some random songs that were coming up on Laura's phone, actually. One of them was Pieces by Amanda Cook. And if you haven't heard it, find it on YouTube, have a listen to it, blow your socks away. Some of the line talks about he doesn't give his heart in pieces. It goes on to say that his love is wild for me. You see, he is so wildly in love with you. Just think about that for a moment. The King of the universe is wildly, extravagantly in love with you. Those of us who are married or have been in love know what it means to be in love with somebody. And that is what the King of the universe is with each one of us. He's wildly in love with us. So I said earlier that I wanted to talk about the love of the Father from a different perspective. And I do, because I want to talk about the love of the Father from three words. And actually, Mary, I don't know if you're aware of this, when you prayed that you use exactly those three words. These three words, for me, are the most powerful words ever spoken on the history of the planet. And these three words, for me, they changed everything. When they were spoken, they changed everything. They changed the entire course of history. And those three words are found in John 19, and Jesus speaks them whilst on the cross. That's the power of these words. And he says simply, "It is finished." You see, as I've said, he spoke these words on the cross. There's an interesting phrase to say "it is finished" when it's on the cross, because most people just thought, "Oh, okay, it's all finished, it's done, and he's dead, he's dying, he's breathing his last, that's it." And actually, there are three groups of people who would have heard Jesus' words, "It is finished." The Romans would have seen it or heard it as a cry of defeat. And they would have thought they'd ultimately won this battle against what Jesus was bringing. So for them, it was defeat for Jesus and success for them. The second group of people who would have heard those words were the Jewish leaders. And they too would have seen it or heard it as a cry of defeat. But to them, the peace that they wanted back was about to ensue, because the upriser, they saw Jesus as an upriser, was now defeated. The disciples, well, they just heard that cry as a cry of despair. Their hope was in him, and now their hope was being dashed. And they would have been completely confused. But Jesus, when he spoke those words, when he said, "It is finished," it was a cry of victory. When he spoke, "It is finished," it was a declaration of hope. When Jesus spoke those words, "It is finished," it was indeed a cry of peace, but it was an internal peace. When everything around is messed up, we can have and we can live in peace. You see, Jesus declares these words fully aware that he has done everything that we might be healed of this cancer to our souls. And there is nothing else that he can do. Jesus doesn't say, "It is almost finished." He doesn't say, "Oh, hang on a minute, I've forgotten something. Take me down, I need to do something else." He doesn't say any of those words. He simply says, "It is finished." Maybe you thought that your cancer to your soul is too great. Maybe you thought that, "Do you know what, I just keep repeating these same sins. I'm beyond hope." Those words that Jesus spoke, "It is finished," is still the loudest declaration today. And those words, "It is finished," are still spoken over everybody's lives who would choose to believe that Jesus died on the cross for them. Those words are for you as well. You see, because no one is beyond these words. Because "it is finished" means everything and everybody can come into into the fruition of those words. No one is out of reach from those words. And more importantly, the enemy, he's still running scared at those words. Whenever he hears the words, "It is finished," he panics. With these words, with our acceptance of these words, we are healed. The enemy no longer has a grip on our lives. This cry, this declaration, is the ultimate act of love. Love from a Father that he would do all he can to ensure that you and I are healed. You see, until this point, there was no remedy. There was no cure for this cancer. And death was inevitable. You know, if we had this cancer, and we all have this cancer, we were going to die. But with these words, and of course the resurrection, death is defeated. Jesus, with these words, destroyed and defeated everything that would come against us. And he defeated cancer. You see, this cancer finally has a remedy. We have a cure. And all that is needed to be accomplished has been won at this point in history. Nothing else is required afterwards. Right at that point, everything that was needed to win has been won. So this morning, I want each of us to know and to allow his truth to fill our hearts. His love is so great that he has put in motion our healing for this cancer. See, the remedy for this cancer has the long-term effect of us being in relationship with Jesus. We give our lives to him and he lives in us. Because of these words, we now live in relationship with Jesus. And this means, the means of this relationship is the Spirit dwelling within us, as Joe talked about earlier. And the goal of the relationship is that we are led by the Spirit. You see, we have everything we need to be in relationship with Jesus, to be in relationship with the one who gave everything, with the one who extravagantly pours out his love on us. You see, because the love he has for you, you are now, it's a fact right now, it's not something that happens in the future, it happens now. You are now adopted into his family. You are now fully healed. You are now fully set free, and we can live in that. See, there's no remission drugs that are required. Jesus is the answer. He remains the answer. So whatever you think, whatever you're facing, Jesus' words are true for you today. Jesus' words are true for you tomorrow. If you're sick, these words are true. He has defeated it. Whatever it is that you're facing this morning, whatever miracle it is that you're wanting this morning, those words, "It is finished," are true today. So I want to encourage you two things really. Firstly, if for whatever reasons today you've not met Jesus, the act on the cross and those words, "It is finished," are for you too. And I would encourage you to chat with someone you know who's a believer, someone who invited you, or one of the church leaders here. Talk to them about what it means further to be in relationship with Jesus. And actually, I want to read these words. I want to read the words from Amanda Cook's song Pieces. Unreserved, unrestrained. Your love is wild. Your love is wild for me. It isn't shy. It's unashamed. Your love is proud to be seen with me. You don't give your heart in pieces. You don't hide yourself to tease us. Uncontrolled, uncontained. Your love is a fire burning bright for me. It's not just a spark. It's not just a flame. Your love is a light that all the world would see. That all the world would see. You don't give your heart in pieces. You don't hide yourself to tease us. You don't give your heart in pieces. You don't hide yourself to tease us. Your love's not fractured. It's not a troubled mind. It isn't anxious. It's not the restless kind. Your love's not passive. It's never disengaged. It's always present. It hangs on every word we say. Love keeps its promise. That's true for us, each one of us. So I want you to recognize that truth of his love, the truth of the word that it is finished. And second thing today, I want to share. I'm drawing into a close, coming into ministry. Laura and I were talking last night just about this and what kind of ministry we could bring. And Laura really felt like there was something on miracles. We were listening to a song that was talking about miracles, and Laura really felt like there was something on miracles. Because if you need a miracle, then those words, "it is finished," those words bring that miracle. So do you need a miracle today? The cross is the provision for that miracle. You see, Jesus, I want you to encourage you to imagine Jesus is in the room with you right now. There's 25 different rooms at the moment, and Jesus is in each and every one of those rooms. And he's stood in front of you. And he's saying to you, what is it? What miracle are you after? Of course, the greatest miracle was the gift of salvation. But what miracle is it you're after? Is it financial provision? Is it healing? Whatever it might be, hear the words of Jesus speaking over your situation. It is finished. The sickness that you need healing from. This morning, I believe that Jesus is saying to you, it is finished. He's taken it away. If you're requiring provision, finances, that requirement for provision is finished. All these words, those 3 words, are being spoken to your situation this morning by the King of the universe that put everything in place that you could experience the love that he has for you, the wildness of his love, the extravagance of his love, the lavishness of his love for you today. They're for you. Amen.